Everybody knows English. Okay. So that you have been awarded the chance to take Sikhan initiation is a great honor, and it's a great privilege. Because the qualification, Srila Prabhupada told us, for taking second initiation is steadiness. And the test for your steadiness is to perform Sankirtan, particularly book distribution, any kind of direct preaching, because that forces us to face every conceivable kind of opposition and challenge and difficulty, all the things that make us unstable in this world. Yam hina vyatayantyete purusham purusharshapha samadukha sukham thiram somridatvaya kalpate. Krishna says early on in the Bhagavad Gita that when someone is stable despite all kinds of difficulties and he's cultivated transcendental knowledge, that person is suitable for liberation. And liberation is another term for Brahmatva, Brahminical status. You have to be liberated. And liberation means, in this sense, to understand that I'm not this material body. I'm an eternal spirit soul, part and parcel of Krishna. And that's not an easy thing to do. Brahmabhuta prasannat manashochati nakangshiti samasarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labhate param. Krishna tells us in Bhagavad Gita that we really only come to the stage of transcendental bhakti once we're already liberated. And Srimad Bhagavatam also tells us the same thing. Nirnamat saranam satam. Somebody who is, actually it's for the Paramahamsas, Srimad Bhagavatam, but at least one has to be liberated to really understand Srimad Bhagavatam. And that liberation is described, well, we can say, Janmana jayate shudra. Everybody is automatically born as a shudra. If you do nothing in the terms of samskaras or refinement, then you remain a shudra. But if you have undergone spiritual initiation of any sort, then you become twice born. Janmana jayate shudra samskaratu bhaved dvijaha. You become twice born. Veda pathat bhaved vipraha. You become a scholar or a pandit if you have studied the Shastras. But Brahma janati iti brahmanaha. The person who has actually understood his spiritual identity on the liberated platform, not only does he understand what spirit is as opposed to matter, but he only identifies with spirit. That person is liberated. And the test of that liberation is stability in service to the Supreme Lord and the spiritual master. Krishna gives us some guidelines in a couple of places. There are two very similar verses. First of all, in Bhagavad Gita chapter 18, text 42, which hopefully everyone here knows it already. Otherwise, you should not be sitting here with a garland around your neck. What is Bhagavad Gita chapter 18, text 42? Who wants to tell me? Raise your hand, please. Okay, what is it? Shamodamastapa shaucham kshantir arjavam evacha jnanam vijnanam astikyam brahma karma svabhavajam. Okay, so you've cleared your slate. So we have to have these qualities. Shama. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says Shama means internally peaceful. Not just externally, but peaceful in the mind. Your internal situation is peaceful. That's really Shama. Dhamma means Bahendriya Nigraha. You have also dominated your external senses. So you've dominated your emotions and your mind and your intellect, but you've also dominated your external senses. And tapa, Sridhar Swami says in his gloss of this verse, means alochanam. What does alochana mean? Introspection. It doesn't sound like the usual definition of tapa, does it? Usually tapasya means austerities, but he's hinting here, implying that the real austerity is to take a good look at yourself and who you are, who you've become, who you think you are, who you want to be. Alochana, introspection, critical thought. That's a sign of a Brahmin. He thinks. So, shamodamastapa shaucham, cleanliness means externally we have to know what are the standards of cleanliness. What to touch and what not to touch when. What time to rise in the morning, how to clean the external body, how to clean the internal body also. Because you're never going to get shamas until you have shocham. And you're never going to get dhammas until you have shocham. Cleanliness is next to godliness. Therefore, the Brahmins in particular are very keen on this point. They're always clean. Most of the time they're clean, in a clean state. So it's a very, very important thing. Very, very clean. Actually, once Srila Prabhupada said, Krishna consciousness means to have a clean bead bag. Anybody who doesn't have a clean bead bag should not be sitting here with a garland around the neck. Cleanliness is next to godliness. We don't notice that we're unclean until we take a bath, is it not? It's very true. So, shocham. And then the list diverges from that point. Shamodamastapa shaucham. In Bhagavatam we get santosha kshantir arjavam. So we'll begin with the elements that are common to the Gita. Kshanti means to be forgiving, or to be tolerant of something, to be able to forgive and forget. Holding grudges is not the sign of a Brahmana. And arjavam means to be simple, or to be, as we say, sarala siddha, straightforward, honest. Prabhupada translates it as. So kshantir arjavam, but there's an added issue that Krishna tells Uddhava in Bhagavad Gita, santosha, to be satisfied. That in itself is the test of whether you are actually shama and dhamma, if you're satisfied. And we've learned from the 8th canto what Vamanadev told Bali Maharaj, if you're not satisfied, then even you have the 3 worlds, you're still going to be upset. You're still going to be agitated in your mind. Satisfaction, santushti, it's a blessed qualification, because only a person who's satisfied can be happy all the time. It's not the satisfaction of a fool, because Bhagavatam says only 2 kinds of people are happy in this world. One is the self-realized person, and the other one is the fool. So it's not an oblivious kind of satisfaction, but it's a satisfaction with knowledge. It's some things I can change, some things I cannot change. I have to accept things the way they are. I have no choice in the matter. Just like if you're in Shani Mahadasha, there's nothing you can do about it except wait. And how long do you have to wait? 19 years. Talk about steadiness. So this is why these qualities are very helpful. So what else? Jnanam vijnanam astikyam. Jnana vijnana means knowledge and practical realization of that knowledge, or application of that knowledge. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur wants to remind us that this means Vedic knowledge. Actually, the only knowledge is Vedic knowledge. He said in either case, this is knowledge or realization that arises from the Vedic literature and is consistent with the purport of the Vedic literature. Otherwise, it's not really knowledge, and it's not really realization. So Jnanam Vijnanam means the Vedas. And Astikyam, what does Astikyam mean? It means theism. Our definition of theism is different than the popular definition of theism. The popular definition of theism, do you believe in God? You're a theist if you believe in God. And you're an atheist if you don't believe in God. That's what they say. But that's not what we say. What do we say? We say you are a theist if you accept the Vedic literature as the supreme authority, and you're an atheist if you do not accept the Vedic literature as the supreme authority. In other words, the Vedas are more important than God, practically speaking, because it's the only way we know anything about God. Shastra yonitvat. Don't believe anything anybody tells you about anything, including Krishna consciousness, unless it's grounded in the Vedic literatures. That's very important. So Jnanam Vijnanam Astikyam, or as he says in the Bhagavad Gita, Mad Bhaktischa Daya Satyam. Devotion to Krishna, that's one thing, and kindness to others, mercy, compassion, and Satyam, truthfulness. Truthfulness means you have to speak the truth sometimes, even if the truth is not necessarily palatable, but as much as possible you have to speak the truth in a way that is palatable, beneficial, uplifting, like this. So Brahma Prakatayas tu imaha. These things are the qualities of the Brahmanas, or as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Karma Swabhavajam. He's already made the point, at least in the Bhagavatam, that these things are born of one's nature. It's hoped that anyone sitting here today waiting for the second initiation has developed this nature to a significant degree already. But we should note that if you don't have all these qualities fully manifest, don't be discouraged. Because initiation, at least in English, the word initiation means arambha. It's a beginning. You're starting to develop this potential. Your spiritual master has seen that you have some potential for Brahminical, I want to say Brahmatva. So that's very good. It should be developed. And it can be developed because the strongest way to develop any spiritual qualification is to perform this Yuga Dharma, which is given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Now, why would we chant the Gayatri Mantra, for example, those who are twice initiated, if all we need is the Hare Krishna mantra? The answer is that the Gayatri Mantra helps us to still the mind. Mananat trayate. This is the definition of mantra. So when our minds are peaceful enough, and when we've developed these Brahminical qualities, and when we have become freed, at least to a large degree, of the offenses to the holy name that we've just heard about, then we are in a position that we can actually take full advantage of the instructions of the spiritual master and the mercy of the spiritual master in the form of initiation. What are some of the other fruits of second initiation? You can worship the deity, and worshiping the deity has the same effect, that it qualifies us further for chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. It's a fact. Everything in this age is centered around this Harinama Sankirtana process. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam, kalau nastyeva, nastyeva, nastyeva gatira nitha. But still, whatever benefit we can get from wherever it exists in the Vedic literature for chanting this Mahamantra successfully, that we should be very eager to embrace. So all these things are there. So this is second initiation, and we hope that all of those who have accepted second initiation in our society should accept the responsibility that goes along with that status. And that responsibility is, number one, to set an example, because example is better than precept. Set an example for others. And secondly, to actually preach Krishna consciousness far and wide, as much as possible. There's such a great need. We've been hearing for the last few days about this. The world is crying for someone to come and give them answers to the questions that torture them. And no one is doing it. Only the people in this room are really going to take that very seriously, because here we're following bona fide acharyas, and we've been ordered by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to take this very seriously. So, what else is there? Vipranam Shamadi Pradhana Brahmacharyadayaha. Jiva Goswami says, regarding Shama, but all the other qualities in general, where do they come from? He says, mainly they're coming from celibacy. Celibacy. This is the big order. In this world, it's a very difficult thing, as we heard this morning. Even the demigods resounded in horror when they heard that Bhishma Dev would not get married. It's a terrible thing. In the material world, those who value sex life above all else, they can't imagine this, and they always resist it. But the fact of the matter is that we've heard from Jiva Goswami that the real basis of all these things and the main element of all these qualities, Brahminical qualifications, is chastity for the women and celibacy or brahmacharya for the men. Brahmacharya, as we also heard this morning, it means more than just not being married. Just as Brahminical status means more than just having a 2-paisa thread around your neck. So similarly, he also, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, matter of detail in the Bhagavatam verse, when Krishna says that bhakti to him is one of the Brahminical qualifications, he's talking about general bhakti. He's not talking about pure devotion. He's talking about any kind of bhakti that people perform. So many people come here to Sri Rangam, and they all worship Ranganath, and they've all got their various reasons for worshipping Ranganath. That's general bhakti. But a pure devotee, we know, anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karmadi anavratam anukulyena krishnanushilanam bhaktiruttama. He's going for the highest ideal, which is pure devotion. So that kind of devotion we want to cultivate, and the best platform from which to do so is the liberated platform of Brahminical status. That's the ideal of Brahminical status, is to actually be liberated. But until then, we continue with this process in all steadiness, and we gradually develop these qualities. It should be seen that these qualities do manifest. As we know from 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Swasti astu vishvasya khala prasidatam dhyayantu bhutani shivam mithodaya. This ahaituki, if there is ahaituki bhakti, then everybody becomes happy, everything becomes auspicious, and yasyasi bhaktira bhagavati akinchana. In the same passage, Prahlad Maharaj continues. All the good qualities of the devatas, they come and they reside permanently in the heart of the devotees. Because the devatas themselves come and reside permanently in the heart of the devotees. Samyak asate. Samasate suraha. They come and they stay. Because in most cases, the devatas are only manifesting in our lives or in our karma as much as they have to fulfill the karmic obligation. But in the case of a pure devotee, that means somebody who has no hetu, haituki bhakti, then they come and they stay in the heart because they want that devotee's association. It's a different thing altogether. This is what the acharyas commenting on that passage say. So Brahminical status is a great privilege, and it should not be taken very lightly. Just like the Gayatri Mantra. Gayatri Mantra, if you forget to chant your Gayatri, or if you neglect your Gayatri 3 times, then you lose your status. It's very serious. Chanakya Kautilya says in his Niti Shastra that one should protect this very, very carefully. Gayatri Mantra is like the root of all religion, and especially Brahminical status. I have to chant the Gayatri Mantra 3 times a day with great attention. And then we will be elevated, and our chanting will become purified, and we will go back to Godhead. So I'm going to stop here. There's just not so much time to speak. We have to keep to our schedule, and we're already late. Okay, so thank you all very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.